Here we are at the end of another patch, patch 8, and it's time for me to do another tier list of the builds I have shown on my channel during patch 8. As before, I've got the same ranking system, starting from critical hit, down through ABC and critical miss. I will be taking into account the effectiveness of the character in the game, and also their backstory, any sort of role-playing value they have. And as before, I'm going to be going through these in chronological order, starting with Tavson, trying to sell turnips. So here he is, playing his drum, and a quick look at him. So he's fairly standard build, except for level 4 I gave him Performer, which is why he is able to play the hand drum. He's got proficiency with all musical instruments. The reason I actually did that was because it was my first build on patch 9, and I wanted to show off the new feat. In terms of the builds, it doesn't really help him in the game. He's not really the person we should be having playing an instrument. Someone with a better charisma, in fact a bard would probably be better. However, his items are pretty good. Give him a range of spells, resistance here to poison damage, feather fall at will. We've got Scorching Ray at will, Magic Missile with Sapphire Spark, which buffs them. Picked up the Robe of Summer. Obviously in this patch, having the Poisonous Robes would have made him more effective. As Wizard, he's pretty good, you know. He's like a usual Wizard. He's not a bad Wizard. I can send him here, and then I can cast any manner of spells. Alright, I've got Mirror Image, got Sapphire Spark. Let's just use that. So, how happy was I with this build, and where would I rate him? So in terms of his effectiveness in the game, I'd probably put him somewhere between B and A. If I was to make him again to be a bit stronger as such, I would not have given him the Performer feat. I would have given him, what, +2 intelligence or some Magic Initiate feat. So I think really that's at a B. In terms of his roleplay value and story, he's quite supposed to be, hopefully, if you play Baldur's Gate 2, you would know he's based off someone called Jan Jansen, who was a gnome that was in the game, who was an illusionist thief. For that, I quite like it, right towards the upper A, but I'm going to leave him at B because it's a bit of a waste of a feat. I could have done something much better for him. But overall, he's a decent wizard. The first build I did with a gnome. Gnomes are naturally good wizards, so it's all good, it's all good. Next up in the list is this deep gnome called Fantastic. Now, I made a massive error while recording this ages ago, making this video, is I didn't save a file with this character. So I've had to go back to the video I've got of the build itself, and I can show you a few things. So the whole thing is about being good in stealth, really. Being a deep gnome, she gets advantage on stealth checks, and expertise in stealth already, that's very high stealth score. And if we scroll forwards to here, we've got +1 to stealth from here, from the Spider Silk armor, and then we've got the Smuggler's Ring. So in terms of having a high stealth, this is a very, very good character. They were an Arcane Trickster, and these spells you get from Arcane Tricksters are pretty good. You've got Colour Spray and Sleep being two good examples where we don't need a high intelligence. Armor class is 15, which is okay for a rogue. It's about the minimum you want. And although she is a rogue, she took up mobile, so she's an extra 35 feet there. We've got the Haste Helm and Crusher's Ring, so actually in combat she's going to be going very, very fast. With Fleet Fingers, after they dash, which can be done with the bonus actions, you can jump. So overall, I think within combat, within the game, she's actually fairly good. She's got some utility because of the fact she's an Arcane Trickster, and as a rogue she does absolutely fine. She can get her sneak attacks off, and she gets to move fast, in and out of combat if needed. In terms of her character, definitely an A. In terms of how good she is in combat and things, and her utility within the game, definitely an A. Kind of getting close to critical hit, I think. If she was a thief, maybe I'd put her at critical hit. And then her backstory is kind of just average. I'd put that down at C. Like overall, I'm going to give this one another B. Next up was a character called Concentration, who, well, specializes in concentration. And looking at the character, you might think he's a rogue, very similar to the previous build. However, it's a sorcerer with a lot of things going for concentration, high dexterity. We've got also this here, advanced in constitution saving throws, which is all very good. We've got dual wielding daggers, a light crossbow, and a few things. This here, line breaker boots. When the wearer dashes or takes a similar action, they gain wrath for 3 turns. Well, we're gonna dash because we have expeditious retreat. And I showed this during the video, I think, for the character itself. And then just give him a stab. And we miss, which is a bit of a shame. So while that's going on in the background, in terms of the gameplay, definitely towards the top. This is a sorcerer who can go into melee, but also has some ranged spells. In terms of the role-playing, it's alright. I quite like the way he looks. Looks like he's quite a hardy character. So I'm I'm leaning towards A for this, just because it's slightly unique as well. Right, it'll be Concentration's turn very soon. Sweet, right now we've got 2 lots of Wrath. Let's use our bonus action to dash again. And with a dagger, we deal 10 damage because we have Wrath. He gets an extra 1 damage, and it all kind of adds up. His dexterity is quite high, it's 18. And like I said, if really needed, we do have some spells to help us out. We've got a couple of ranged spells. They're only cantrips, but we could have enlarged himself. That would give him extra damage, 1d4 damage. And he's got False Life to help him survive, and Blur if we really want. I'm going to put him up as at an A because it's slightly unique in terms of the build, but it's still very viable. Next up was a character called Tavernator, where he had a very high strength. Now, the load I have, is after the fight with Grim, and so he's got the permanent effect of Broken Promises. Strength is indefinitely reduced by 1. However, that makes strength of 22, so 22, 23 doesn't really make a difference. So what's the point of this guy? Well, it's to have an immense strength, which means first of all his jump distance is really quite high. Let's see, 35 feet, and that's without the jump spell which he has. He has a Battle Master, 90% chance to hit. That's without Bless or Leviathan's Love or any other type of bonus. That's just his normal chance to hit, because he's got such a high strength and a +2 weapon and proficiency. So he can do things such as this, hopefully. There we are. Gone. I don't think I need to show any more than this. Obviously the rest of the party also have a very high strength, but at the same time a very low charisma, wisdom and intelligence. Kind of does make them a bit worse, but I absolutely love Tavernator. He's easily a critical hit. Regardless of his backstory or roleplay potential, just the fact he's such a good character, for me, puts him all the way up here. Next up is a Barbarian called Stavia, another gnome build, my 3rd one so far out of, what was this one? Out of 5. And I just wanted to show off the gnomes, to be honest, in this patch towards the beginning. So what is she like? She's a barbarian. Shout out to Sean John, who will definitely like that fact. Now, the stats don't seem particularly high, but that's because their kind of speciality is saving throws. Because they're a gnome, they get advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, with proficiency in wisdom from the helmet, and then proficiency and just a decent constitution saving throw, same with strength. When we have lightning charges, it goes up by +1, and from having Shield Master as a feat, then a saving throw bonus for dexterity is +4. So no weak saving throws are here. Now, how does she play out? It's a bit unfair. I'm down here in the bedchamber, in the abandoned temple, right at the beginning of the game. For some reason, one of the characters are dead. Don't really remember why. And so let's do this. So how does the build work? She's got Speedy Light Feet to give her lightning charges. She can get lightning charges from Jolt Shooter, which all helps with dealing a tiny bit of damage and hurting people. And being a barbarian, I mean, she's just great, to be honest. Great. Poisoned. Definitely what I want. Right, so here we are. Can I... Ooh, not enough movement to get there. That is a shame. I'm going to dash one more time then. Get more lightning charges. Can't quite get close enough. Maybe she can throw something for a hand axe. Right, because she built up enough lightning charges, got maximum roll on her damage, completely killed that guy in one go. So, is she strong? In terms of attacking, she's a little bit lacking compared to probably most other barbarians because of the lower strength. And this weapon she wields is only 1d6, and there are no other things really boosting her damage apart from lightning charges. However, in terms of defensiveness, really good. High hit points, and while raging, she takes half damage from physical attacks, and she has good saving throws. And so, as a barbarian, she can always reckless attack, which helps make up for the lower strength in terms of attacking. And if I want some extra damage, as I've already done, let's dash. She can only do that while raging. And then, yeah, reckless attack, let's go. Right, she'll stay alive because also her weapon helps heal her every hit. So where's she going to go? As a barbarian, she doesn't do quite as much damage as I would like. She is unique. I'm thinking maybe B here. If she did more damage, it'd probably be higher. If she didn't have some sort of speciality, I'd probably put her down lower. Yeah, middle of the road. Could have been better, could have been worse. Our next build was a Elf Cleric called Support Half. So here he is, kind of showing you all of his equipment. And the thing is, this isn't a brand new build. This isn't anything unique. It is just a build I hadn't built before for a video. Very kind of bog standard. You get all the items that benefit healing. given to a Life Cleric who has stronger healing. So we've got the Boots of Aiding Comfort, Whispering Promise, Ring of Restorative Gravity, Hellrider's Pride. I think those are all the items that can help with healing. And a decent armor class and a nice enough weapon and Spell Thief there. I built this just because I wanted to, not because I thought it was strong or unique or new. This can only be done outside of combat with Prayer of Healing. But you can transfer buffs to people, give them Blade Ward and Bless and temporary hit points. I feel like I want to put it in C. Maybe it's a bit lower than it deserves, maybe. But yeah, it's just not unique. This is a well-known build, I would say. And I do try to make builds that I haven't seen people write about or make videos about so much. But I know this is one that's been around since almost the beginning of the game. Had this been patch 2 or something, maybe I'd put it up at critical hit. But by this point, it's kind of a bit lower, I think. Huntav was next. And this was a ranger that kind of specializes in items and abilities that come online when they have a low number, or when she has a low number of hit points. So the Helmet of Grit. The Ritual Axe will be constantly lowering her hit points while she's above 25%. Leviathan's Scourge will deal damage to herself, although she gets resistance to necrotic damage. However, on the other side of that, Absolute's Talisman also helps keep her alive a little bit. Anyway, so let's just show this off one more time. There's a ranger with Board Breaker, handing out Bane like it's nobody's business. This is almost ideal for her, so she's got this from before the combat started. That didn't work, that's okay. Board Breaker. That one's dead. Board Breaker again. That one's dying. Offhand attack. This one will do AoE damage. There we are. One of them. We'll just try it one more time. Bam! So I won't show anymore, but I quite like this. I haven't made a ranger in a long time before doing this. And this is a slightly more difficult build to use because we're kind of running the risk of dying. We want to have a low number of hit points, but of course we don't want it to be 0. But we've got a couple of weapons that reduce our hit points every time we hit nearly. However, a high armor class helped along by Absolute's Ward from Astarion here. I did cast Bless to help her out in these attacks. I'm going to put this at A for being kind of a slightly more evil take on things. I don't make so many characters that are kind of inherently evil and do bad evil things. But yeah, she came out of nowhere. Don't know where she came from. I like it. Githyanki was next. She is a warlock that's kind of melee focused. And here she is. A shield dwarf, dual wielding warhammers, which are kind of cool. I like these 2 warhammers actually. Faithbreaker and the Intransigent Warhammer. And then the Chain of Liberation along with the Haste Helm help her sprint in and out, which is quite cool and quite good, quite useful. Gloves of Power along with Bane as a spell and a few spells to help her out in melee. I'm getting a good position here. Now that was obviously fairly ideal because goblins have a low number of hit points and they're all gathered around together. But in terms of being a melee warlock, sure, we can do this twice, but now she's out of spell slots. Killed the imp. Obviously we can take a short rest, we're kind of fine. We can sprint away, get out of danger. But once she's used up her spell slots, she kind of doesn't have any good damage to rely on. She didn't take Eldritch Blast, so trying to make something different. And I certainly did that. Get away. And that was a free thing. I actually really like the Chain of Liberation here, but I didn't think this was the best build for it. I mean, she's almost got potential. We've got a few of these melee spells like Mirror Image to help keep her alive and Armor of Agathis, but we kind of want to use multiple of these per fight, but we can only use 2 spells per fight maximum. I'm going to put her down in C. I think it's kind of unrealized potential here. Could have been better. Story of my life. Next up is Heavy Metav. Here he is. And he is a bard who can do just about everything. Not exactly invulnerable, but actually very hard to kill. And so we're just going to stand up here and... Oh, here we go. It started. The enemy is reeling. We barely have to do anything anymore. We'll keep trying Vicious Mockery because it will help. And there's reeling again. And it's just very difficult to hit once there's been a miss or 2. And I have to say, I absolutely love this character. I like the way he looks, I like the way he is in the game, and there's just nothing not to like. So up he goes into critical hit. The penultimate build I named Naprostavman, named after the user or the viewer who sent this in, called Naprostaman. And it was all about buffing up your cantrips, pretty much, and getting lots of sorcery points. So we've got some important items here, the Water Sparkers and the Sparks Wall, the Misty Step Amulet, and Rain Dancer, probably the most important ones. We do have a few other things which will help. And I'm going to try and make up or correct a wrong while I made the actual build video. I was supposed to Misty Step in and then create water. I wasn't doing it around. And so we electrocute all of these enemies. And while they are electrocuted, they take extra damage, but they're wet, so they take double that damage. And on their turn, they are taking 4 damage there. It's kind of like some damage over time stuff. Thought that one wasn't in the electrocuted surface. Fair enough, this one was, took 4 damage. And yeah, it's great, I think. I do like this build. It's kind of strong. Sorcerers are strong in general. We can always use our meta magics to increase the power of our spells, which is what this was all about. So here we are. Maybe I could now move closer and, I don't know, twin Shocking Grasp. Ooh, not quite standing close enough to each other, which is sad. So I have to choose a different thing because Shocking Grasp it's a melee spell. So when you twin it, the enemies have to be standing quite close to each other. So instead, what will I do? Let's twin Poison Spray. There we are. That was pretty good as things go. Do I like this build? Very much indeed. I'm going to put it up at A because there was no story behind this and I didn't want to make one up. I think had there been a cool backstory or some sort of roleplay, I'd definitely put it up at critical hit. But in terms of how it works in the game, in early access, in patch 8, I really, really enjoyed it. And lastly, we have Defenestration. Githyanki, he was all about shoving and throwing people. He's also good at jumping as things go. What is his whole deal? Oh yeah, let's stop this. Really about shoving people. Now there's nowhere to shove anyone right here, but during the video I did show him shoving people off some high places. What are we going to do? We're going to cast jump, and then we're going to jump around. And if I'm being really mean, I'm going to now go invisible and just jump twice. They're going to go invisible as well, joining in the fun. Oh no, he's going enlarged, fair enough. And we can jump really far. Combat ended because I was invisible and they couldn't find me. And with jump, we can go a very long way indeed. And if we go to turn-based mode, we could actually cover a very large distance. Anyway, what do I think? I really, really like this build. I think it's quite strong. Got stupidly high athletics. Ability +10 and a high strength. Doesn't matter. We throw. Can throw him to the edge and then shove him off. Goodbye. That was 95% chance to shove, and 2 people are gone. And I love his moustache. Some people made a couple of comments about that, and just to go back, I'm going to go to critical hit and put him up there. Right, so overall, I was fairly happy with most of these builds. These 2 at the bottom, I think, lacked something special, something different, or in this case, just didn't quite work out how I intended. I got to show off some gnomes who all ended up in B. That wasn't intended, but I used gnomes here just because gnomes were new. Let me think if you liked any of these more than I did, or liked any of them less than I did. If you made it this far, please consider subscribing. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.